This semester I really liked, well, last semester it started because I was doing my humanities class and we were reading about ancient Rome and I got to learn a bit about all the emperors. And this awesome guy named Suetonius here, he wrote a book called The 12 Caesars, and it catalogs the biographies of Augustus to Domitian, which is a giant span of time because he's a crazy writer. And then I wanted to do an honors program learning more about these historical characters, or people more like. Suetonius, as he was writing, his work comes off a lot like he's a gossip, like the National Enquirer of ancient Rome, you know, oh, guess who's sleeping with who, and this is going on. And then I found another person named Tacitus who wrote primarily about Tiberius and Claudius and Nero, who we will get to learn later on in this presentation. He is a bit of a grump. Tacitus is grumpy, I'm assuming, because he survived the age of Domitian, in which a lot of senators got killed, and he was one of the senators. So anyone who survived that kind of stuff is probably really grumpy, and it shows in his work, but he's rather fun anyway. So on to the first emperor of Rome. Here we have Augustus Octavian Caesar. He was known for his era of peace, and by the time he was through with his reign, due to the fact that he died, thankfully it was a peaceful death. The Germans, according to Tacitus, were the only people at war with the Romans. So he also, he made a lot of reforms that were really good. He made a law saying that the men of Rome shouldn't get married to little children just to avoid being a father, and he made a lot of other good things. He built a lot of architecture, and Augustus used to boast that he found Rome a city of brick and left it closed in marble. So he's one of the more famous Roman emperors, and I personally love him because he is one of the few that actually brought peace and managed to bring the good and balance the bad between societies. And I just think overall he's a really good person. And he's portrayed in a lot of different media, first being the HBO show Rome, and he is portrayed as a very strong person because his character comes into the Roman politics right after Julius Caesar dies, and he takes over the empire for himself, getting rid of Mark Antony, Brutus, Cassius, and all other opposition. And he's just awesome. And in Claudius, in the book written by Robert Graves, Augustus is not portrayed as strong as in Rome, because in Claudius, Augustus is being controlled by his wife Livia, who wants her son Tiberius on the throne. So she's manipulating him, and it's a disaster. And he just comes across as more weak. And then, of course, we have Night at the Museum. Officially, I don't know if Octavius is a mix of Julius Caesar and Augustus, but Octavius is the little miniature guy in the museum that Larry Daly runs into. And he's a really fun character. And the writers also put in Night at the Museum that Octavius is probably gay or at least bi, which is actually historically true because people like Mark Antony accused Augustus of sleeping with Julius Caesar to gain power. And that's just one of many rumors that Suetonius dug up. Augustus's wife, Livia, is of much debate because a lot of people didn't like her. And in Claudius, she is said to have poisoned him, and a lot of other sources tend to say that she might have, but knowing Suetonius, he didn't mention anything, so I personally think that she was just more of a plot device for writers. Augustus died in 41 BC, and his adopted son Tiberius took over the empire. Now, adoption in ancient Rome is a lot different because you could adopt someone who's already like 35, you know. So, and And then Tiberius, he became the next emperor. He was rather crazy. He actually started out really nice. He was very humble and was like, you know, guys, I don't really want the empire. I mean, you guys can give it to me, and maybe when I don't need it anymore, I will give it back. But he didn't, of course. And he was a disaster because he was not only a sadistic freak, but no, yes, I mean, seriously, he'd throw people off of cliffs. And he was also perverted, in which he was a pedophile. And that didn't bode well for anybody. And eventually, Tiberius died of illness, or he was murdered by Caligula, who Suetonius mentions might have killed Tiberius as revenge for killing all of Caligula's family, which Tiberius did. And Caligula was nicknamed Caligula because it means little boots, and he grew up in the Roman army, and his name is Gaius Caesar. And yeah, he ruled pretty well for a few months until he fell ill, and then Suetonius says that after he fell ill, his personality went down the drain, because I don't know what happened, no one does, but here he's portrayed very differently in the media. We have the Robe here, played by Jay Robinson, and in the Robe, Caligula is played as somewhat of a stereotypical bad guy. He's somewhat insane, because Caligula, not only in real life, was disastrous, he also suffered from mood swings and would just randomly kill people because he got upset, you know? He was very unstable. And in the Robe, he's just played as this somewhat crazy person, but not like in the movie Caligula, played by Malcolm McDowell, who is completely insane. But I personally think that I, Claudius, played by John Hurt here, he struck the balance between human and insane quite well. You know what I mean? Like Malcolm McDowell, he is played as, from the trailer I saw anyway, he is played like just someone who's completely off their rocker. Caligula in real life had more sense. But the reason that I, Claudius, feels like a better portrayal is that Caligula is seen as still a person, but he's not completely gone. One of the best scenes in I, Claudius is in real life, Caligula would dress up in women's clothes and other stuff. He'd just dress how he wanted. Conventions of clothing and gender didn't matter to him. And he dressed up as Venus in I, Claudius and did this crazy dance that was scandalous, and he was a scantily clad Venus, and it was the greatest thing ever. And the other thing, too, the I, Claudius Caligula also was completely nuts, because he not only, as it says here, he slept with his sisters, and in I, Claudius, Drusilla got pregnant, and then he decided to kill her by cutting out the child and eating it. But that comes from the reason being in I, Claudius, because Caligula in real life decided he wanted to be a god, a living god. So he had everyone treat him as such and built himself a temple. And in the show, in I, Claudius, he thinks he is Jove, and so he thinks that his children are going to overthrow him like the Greeks did Zeus and whatnot. So that is what happened. And sadly, and most fortunately actually, Caligula's reign was very, very short. It was only a little under 4 years, because he got assassinated. And that left the empire to his uncle Claudius, who stammers and is kind of bumbling, and Suetonius said he would hobble a lot. And he managed to live through Tiberius and Caligula and somehow managed to get the throne, all by accident, because the people in the show, like Claudius here, he was hiding behind these drapes when the assassins who killed Caligula came in, and they were like, "Oh, is that you, Claudius?" And he's like, "Oh my God, don't kill me!" And then they're like, "Oh, we won't kill you. We'll make you emperor because it'll be a funny joke to everybody else because everybody knows you're stupid." No, like in real life, Claudius wasn't a very loved person by the nobles, such as Livia and Augustus and people. But in the Robe, he's played a lot like the caring uncle who wants good things to happen. And the thing with Claudius in the media, I always feel like they use him to wrap things up in a nice little bow. They'll go from Caligula's crazy reign to having it be, "Oh, Caligula's dead. Oh my gosh, look, hail Claudius, guys, he's our new emperor. Everything is peachy keen now." And Claudius is in the background of a lot of movies. The Road to Nero, the Road to Tyranny, he kind of plays a central character. Claudius is the other Roman emperor who is beloved by the Roman people. He also married Agrippina and Messalina, who used him to get what they wanted, which is sad because he was a good person. And then after Claudius's death, Agrippina's son Nero took the throne, and that went disastrous because he burned down the city and everything else. And finally, this man named Galba came in and is like, "Nero, you're messing stuff up. I'm gonna have to take over the empire. You are now an enemy of the state." And so Nero had no choice but to go kill himself, unfortunately. But then the Roman Empire went on. And even though all of these people are sometimes historically crazy or don't do good things, I think the reason why they've lived on is because they show human nature, and they show people what it's like to be in power. And some of them are good and some of them are bad, and that's just the way the world works because everybody uses power differently. Thank you.